Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hipnovision Media. I am your host, Nicholas. Today, semen retention. And this is a topic that I never thought I would be having a discussion on publicly, let alone making a video and posting it on YouTube. But over the past year, I've been practicing semen retention, and I wanted to give a testimony and tie in a few points that I don't ever see people really making on other videos, because most of what I've seen has either been semen retention makes you extremely magnetic and you will just magically get all these women and you are somehow some kind of god. But to be honest, this is more of a spiritual inward mastery of self. And that is kind of where I want to keep this discussion today. Semen retention is actually a very ancient teaching. It's been known about, and it is practiced in many different cultures, many different religions, and it's you can find teachings of this worldwide when you start to look into the history of semen retention. Now, I want to focus first on the absolute tie-in with DNA, and I also want to keep in mind during this conversation the term cymatics and how cymatics allows us to see sound. And I've been really using cymatics the past few months to tie a lot of these things together, especially when the law of vibration is considered, how it affects the shape of our DNA and the molecules within us. So when it comes to semen retention, and even if you were to impregnate somebody, this would also have a very strong factor in it. And I think this is one of those things that people never really connect the dots on, because this is outwardly focused. Most men come across semen retention videos, and maybe the focus and attention on the video and the message being delivered is not connecting the dots, or it's not really highlighting some of these other aspects. But to be honest, this is a mental, 100% mental aspect of mastering semen retention, because the body itself is a chemical makeup, and it takes our mind to perform alchemy. And if you look at Napoleon Hill's work, there's other work out there. Mental alchemy is the brain's pharmacy for the body, so to speak. And I won't really go into that. I want to really stay on my testimony on this. But the mentality aspect of it is 100%. It comes from your imagination. So you need a mind set. And you need a baseline from your imagination to create a good self-image of yourself. And if you look at different things like how you can create chemical reactions and from different fruits and vegetables, lead, and you mix different types of things together, you can create a chemical reaction. So we know that physically is possible, and we can physically see that with our eyes. So the same applies within the body. The electrical impulses that we send out from our thoughts and the emotional charges that we give that create the feeling. So the internal state, I would liken this to making a bad Polaroid or a black and white copy and then making a copy of a copy of a copy. Eventually, that copy is going to be distorted. It's not very high definition. You can't make out what the picture is. So when we start getting away from our mindset and we start letting our body control our mind, we start to deplete ourselves. And if semen is the life creative force that can create another human being, when we save it, what do you think it does to us on the inside? It helps to clarify our mentality, for one. It also helps us tame the bodily beast in the flesh. And that allows our soul to ascend. And that is ascended mastery of self, of the soul of Man, Solomon, King Solomon. So I see all these dots in my imagination, and I start to connect things like this. And it's been really helpful for me to internally see how this stuff works inside. So, soul ascension to me would be taming the fleshly beast, not being reactive to negative and unwanted things on the outside, being able to control your impulses, and being able to be calm and reflective in most situations, and the ability to be more creative and purposeful with your life. So with that in mind, I'm going to have a few graphics that I'll put up as I talk through some of this stuff. This is really firsthand testimony. This is not supposed to be some kind of written word as law, but there is plenty of information out there if you want to research this stuff and dig a little bit deeper. But I highly suggest that you keep in mind that semen retention is a mental mindset, and it takes practice. If you've never done it and you intend to try it, you will soon figure out that this really truly is about taming that inner beast. So we inherently are always imagining, and this happens on such a backdrop scale that we simply forget. And we are so into the movie, so to speak, the theater of life, and our attention is focused outwardly. When we have those urges, sometimes we don't even stop and think. We impulsively react. And we can get caught up in these cycles of repeating things over and over in our life. And sooner or later, we become very depleted. And if we're not able to save that seed of life, and when I think about tithing to the church and I internalize that concept to myself, then I would tithe at least 10% or more of my creative, energetic life force to wash new blood over my mind and create new blood cells, keep myself healthy, both mentally and physically. And that will also help my inner soul to stay balanced. And to me, that makes more sense than anything in the world, because staying balanced and not being too hard on your swings from being overly happy and then being in depressive mindsets, it's really that cycle that we want to stay away from. So the whole idea of the Kundalini rising, and is also depicted as a snake. So, you know, the serpent has been depicted so many times throughout history, and I won't really go into that because, to be honest, there's plenty of information out there. But when you consider the fact that if you drain your life force and your pineal gland is calcified, then that strand, if you look at it as a DNA turned on its side, if you remove one of those strands, then you have half. So when people go through a Kundalini awakening, they have awakened that energy at the base of their spine, and it travels up to the brain, to the pineal gland, and that decalcified process allows for the energetic spark to travel from left to right. And that is the mirror image of the two hemispheres of the brain. And to me, that makes the most sense when you internalize the whole idea of what New Age calls twin flames. It is the mirror image. If you have a logical side and a emotional creative side, and they are facing each other, and the pineal gland is in the center, that would make tremendous amounts of sense to me. The Ark of the Covenant, and the whole idea of a starseed, starburst. What is conception? There's a lot going on when you start looking at the story of creation itself, because it actually is the story of us. I realize there's a lot of talk out there around the topic of when is conception, but when you really look at it through the lens of spiritual eyes, life and death really is an illusion. Imagination comes from the unified field. All things are possible. Now, if you don't know what the unified field is or have never heard of it, then I would suggest, and maybe I'll put some links in my video somewhere, for the unified field. That is all things, all energy, present and not present. Even if something doesn't exist, there has to be the opposite. So there is always energy flowing in the universe. It is always in motion. And the energy, it can't be destroyed. It only transforms. So when we hold our seed and time it with the moon cycles, which is something that I did not even know until I was 44 years old, that men actually have these cycles. And when your sun sign goes through on a full moon, you get this Kundalini effect. The first time I experienced this, I really couldn't explain what I was going through because I started having a lot of very lucid dreams. I started to experience a lot of supernatural feeling stuff, but it was really, that connection between left and right side of the brain, because if our brain waves are out of sync, and if you look at brain waves like a sine wave and it's out of sync, then you have two different vibrations or two different hertzes. So those waves do not line up with each other, and they actually can play against each other, which would really make a person seem like they are indecisive and they are not able to really be very imaginative or creative, or they might just be like really cold and not have a lot of emotion or have emotional regulation problems. So when you clarify that image between the left and right, and you resynchronize the brain and you are harmonizing across all the unified field, now all of a sudden you understand what Nikola Tesla was speaking about with 3, 6, and 9, frequency and vibration. Everything is energy in motion. So that is simply amazing when you turn this information that you see on all these YouTube videos and all these books and everything, and you turn it inward onto yourself, and you ask yourself, how does this apply to me internally? Then the imagination will start to reveal these things to you. And it is absolutely a blessing. It is amazing. And if you can get over the mental hurdle of starting this journey and have the mental fortitude to stay with it, and I might add that takes intentions. For me, I had to write intentions like affirmations quite a bit for me to get my mentality out of a rut. But at the same time, mastering that beast of the body is really more about the mindset than it is the body. So it's been proven that our bodies go through these different cycles of hormonal release based upon our mindset. But when we're not aware, our body can start to control our mindset. So it's like a feedback from the body to the brain. Instead of us driving the car is on autopilot and it is driving us off of a cliff. Life purpose, because I see life now as me being both a teacher and a student. So my kids are teaching me and I am teaching them. And one of the things that I have asked my kids a lot this past year is to teach me how to be a kid again. Because as a 44-year-old man, a lot of times adults can be accused of being childish. But at the same time, we forget how to love and play and be curious like a child. And children don't think about things like paying bills, and they don't worry about going to the doctor until we teach them through our own actions to worry. And we teach them through our own actions to feel certain ways about different things. So this has been a two-way street, to be honest. I'm getting closer to my children, and they are teaching me a lot. So the whole concept of semen retention has been life-changing because I have more energy for myself. Mentally, I feel better. And spiritually, I have a much deeper understanding of the universe, of creation, of how everything is working together. And to be honest, I feel the moon way different than I used to. I am more sensitive to subtle changes in the environment, and I'm more aware of things that I never paid attention to before. And you are thinking clearer, you are more healthy, and you are regenerating new blood cells washed by the blood. And it's not Jesus, it's washed by the blood of the Christos oil, enlightened, so to speak, through the semen retention, the Kundalini practices, meditation. You start to see things very different. And sooner or later, that new mindset will start to sink in. It will start to cement itself. And you will never really want to go back. Why would you? Because the short-term gratification, it only lasts for a few minutes. Well, maybe not even a few minutes. But I can tell you the feelings of gratitude and joy inside when you are retaining and you don't even think about it. For me, my point of view is sex is not the first thing on my mind all the time. In fact, the longer I have been on semen retention, the less I've even craved sex. I think about it less. I don't want it because it has got me in touch with parts of myself that I never knew were there. And there are some things about myself that I never really understood. And this practice has helped me to understand that. But internally, the masculine and feminine principle, energetically, and the laws of the universe itself, which cannot be changed. That is something that you start to understand once you go on this journey. It is inherently inside of you, and you can't really change that part. You can call yourself whatever you want on the outside. You can be whatever you want on the outside. But the internal knowing is not something that you can really change. How you understand it, perceive it, and describe it can, but inherently on the inside, you understand what that means. So the caring, loving, compassion, unconditional love, and nurturing aspect of the female or feminine principle versus the masculine, which is logical and also protection, building, structure, discipline. These are all things that you really need to have both of to create anything. And if you have a person who has come to this internal understanding inside of themselves, you will start to see within that person how they are more compassionate, but they are also logical. They are more understanding, but they are also more knowledgeable. And you can really see how this kind of balances everything out. Again, guys, this is really my interpretation, my testimony. It has absolutely changed my life in ways that I have yet discovered yet. But I'm telling you that this has been a journey that I'm very grateful. Even at 44 years old, I am very grateful that I got to go on, that I got to spend time alone and spend time going on this inward journey and meditating and writing and creating and journaling and thinking about the future and visualizing what I can really do with the chains off of my imagination. So literally that is what you would consider breaking a generational curse. What does any of this mean if you don't have purpose in your life? If you don't understand your soul purpose, if you don't understand the true meanings of life, appreciation, gratitude, and enjoying the creation without limits, because we are imposed with limits from the minute we are born. We are given social security numbers. We are given all kinds of dates and reminders and birthdays and all kinds of illusionary structures that really confine our imagination, or either we are put into systems where we are not allowed to question things in our imagination, or we are told that we should be shameful for things that are in our imagination, which, to be honest, would be a feedback into said imagination. So I find that really interesting when you start to look at feedbacks and loopbacks and reflections and stuff like that. And I think in the last video, I spoke about the Neville Goddard teachings of everyone as you pushed out and pulling everyone back in. So when we are too far outward in our attention, we are not paying attention to our body. We are further from our imagination, and the things that are in our imagination are being put there through suggestion, through sublimination, through advertisements. And that is driving our subconscious. And we are not aware until we stop and sit down and really turn that light inward and see what's in the dark. So semen retention is a mentality. It is a mental mindset of getting to know yourself, getting to love yourself, getting to forgive yourself, and most importantly, learning how to imagine from your imagination lovingly and from compassionate. It's a life-changing experience, because the more you release, the less you resist things that you feel like you don't deserve, or you shouldn't have, or you should be ashamed of. The more of those type things you can release from your imagination, the better quality of life you will start to have. And at the end of the day, I think we all want that. I think at the end of the day, we all want to enjoy life to its fullest without fear and without worry. So for me, making this video and putting this content out here is worth it. I have no shame in speaking about semen retention and the absolute power that it carries, because it does. It is life-changing. And I wish that I had known sooner. And I am making this a mission, a purpose in my life moving forward, to bring awareness to things like this, because our education system externally has failed us. And that gives me purpose in life. If I reflect back to a younger me, if I had this information, how much different my life would have been. While I don't dwell on that anymore, I see the significance of this information and how it could help others moving forward. And for me, that gives me purpose. Guys, I will see you down the road. I have a lot of topics I want to get to, and I'm starting to lean more towards testimony style videos, because I find that to be the best, because I'm not presenting information as absolute truth. I am just simply presenting my perception of how I understand this knowledge that is being presented to me. But I really do tie in the DNA with semen retention, and I do tie in cymatics with semen retention, because DNA is the core of life. And with that, I'll see you guys down the road.